Hi everyone, welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting podcast. So I'm going to break down UFC 257. I thought I'd do it today before tonight's UFC or this afternoon's UFC. So normally I recap on the last event. Already done that on the last podcast. So next podcast we do for the next event, which is a couple of weeks away after 257. I'll recap the results for today's UFC and for UFC 257 in terms of how we and members got on with our bets. So I'm going to go straight into the card here. Just a quick reminder, ProMMABetting.com. Packages are available on the website. You can sign up for a week, month, 6 monthly, yearly. Majority of the members are with us for the year. So I always say, it's a long-term investment. I can't guarantee you results week in, week out. We don't win every week. Impossible to do so. You've got to understand there will be losing weeks. But the aim of the service is to make profit over a 12-month duration. And that's what we've done. I've been offering this service to people for 2 years now, and we have made profit both years. We offer a pre-betting service and a live betting service. Live betting is offered on a private Discord channel, which has turned into a bit of a mini community where the guys will discuss fights throughout the week, break them down. I enjoy getting involved. I learn stuff. I'm not one of these guys that thinks I know it all. I'm here to learn, view myself as an eternal white belt. So happy to hear knowledge from other guys, things I might miss, things that I forget. I do so much tape. Sometimes there are bits and pieces that I do forget, and it's sometimes nice to be reminded of a certain aspect of a fight that might have slipped through my mind. So great little community we've got going as well. As I say, most of the members are with us for the year just because it's the most bang for your buck. A, it works out cheaper than paying each month. And secondly, like I say, if you sign up for a month, you might sign up when we have a rough month. It doesn't give you a true representation of how things look throughout the year. And equally, you might sign up when we have a great month. And that might not be a true representation of how it'll look throughout the year. There are ups and downs. It's, I always say it's like the stock market. You've got to take good months and the bad months. But overall, the aim is that we come out in profit over the 12 months. And that's what we've managed to do. Since I've been offering the service, we've managed to do that. I've been betting on MMA for, I don't know, it must be 6, 7, 8 years now. And I've never had a losing year. So it's a profitable service. We've got the UFC at the moment. There's going to be more events kicking in. Bellator will kick off. I'm not sure when their first event is, but I'm sure there's probably going to be some point in February. We'll start getting regular Bellator events, boxing to kick off as well. I know Eddie Hearn's got some shows lined up. We don't tend to have too many pre-bets for the boxing, but we always offer live betting, mainly for the UK shows, because the UK shows are normally on before the UFC. So we can watch the Matchroom shows and then we can jump straight onto the UFC. The shows over in America, we don't tend to offer a service on them for live betting just because they normally clash with the UFC and UFC gets priority. But over the course of a year, there's probably, there's over 100 events where we're going to be offering either pre-bets or live betting on. So there's a lot to get your teeth stuck into. So if you want to have a look at the memberships, ProMMABetting.com, packages on there. Please hit the subscribe button for this YouTube channel. I'm trying to grow the channel as big as I can. And please give us a follow on Twitter. I'll often drop just thoughts on fights throughout the week. Sometimes I run discounts on memberships. Twitter is at Pro MMA Betting. So we're going to jump straight into the card. As always, I work from bottom to top. I'm going off. I've just brought a Wikipedia here quickly. I'm assuming it's right. It's a big event, so I'm assuming the order's correct for this show. So first fight, we've got Amir Albazi taking on Zhalgas Zhumagulov. This fight was meant to happen just before Christmas. It got moved to UFC 257. I think I saw an interview with Amir where he said, I think Zhumagulov had some visa issues. Am I recalling that correct? I think that's what it was. I don't think there was an injury either side. I think it was to do with visa issues. So Amir trains in London. He trains out of my ex-gym, London Shoot Fighters. He's a very solid grappler. He's 13-1. His only loss is when he took a step up in competition. Lost to Jose Torres, who some of you will recall from the UFC. It was 1-1 going into round 3. He he kind of slowed down in that fight, seemed to gas out. He got dropped a few times by Torres. He wasn't really hurt when he was dropped, but he kind of got dropped a couple of times. And I think at least one of them, maybe both of them, they were quite inconspicuous the way he went down. But I mean, he never seemed to be overly hurt, but he did get dropped. He's a very opportunistic grappler. That's his stronghold is his grappling. I mean, you saw that in his UFC debut where he triangled Malcolm Gordon, and you can see from his record he's got 8 submissions from 13 wins. And when you go and watch a lot of his fights, I think a lot of the TKOs are like ground and pound against overmatched opponents who he gets down and just pounds out. So his forte is his grappling. He's going to need to have improved his striking. So the worry with the Torres fight was he did slow down, but I mean Torres does push a ridiculously high pace. But his style is a little bit similar to Zhumagulov in that sense. Zhumagulov's someone that just will constantly move forward, he'll throw in volume. So this is a concern with Albazi here. He's going to want to get this fight to the floor. When you do Zhumagulov tape, he's a striker. That's his forte. So I imagine Albazi is going to be trying to get this to the mat. Zhumagulov's going to try and keep it on the feet. He's going to try and apply a lot of forward pressure. I thought he looked good in his debut against Paiva. I actually bet Paiva there, and I felt a little bit fortunate to get that decision. I thought Zhumagulov done enough to nick that decision. I was really surprised. He got Paiva a little bit hesitant in that fight. Paiva normally, he's got a really solid chin, Paiva, and I expected him to be the one pressuring, but he didn't quite pan out like that. He was a little bit hesitant in that fight. So I have watched Zhumagulov's regional fights. The fight with Tagir Ulanbekov, who is now in the UFC, was I don't know how he got that decision. Very questionable decision. The win over Ali Bagatinov, another questionable decision. He definitely got some generous decisions on the Fight Nights Global promotion. But nonetheless, he was competitive in both fights. He's not an easy fight for anyone. I don't think he's ever been submitted. He's been KO'd once in his career. That was back in 2015. And he has fought high level of competition. He's definitely faced better competition than Albazi. And as I say, a little bit unfortunate to lose that fight with Paiva, but he was probably due losing a fight that he won when you think about some of the decisions he got in Fight Nights Global that he probably shouldn't have got. So interesting fight here. Zhumagulov can be taken down. You watch his fights against Ulanbekov, against Bagatinov, and he gets taken down a lot in these fights. He can be held down for minutes as well. He does eventually get his way back to his feet in these fights, but there are extended periods where he can be held on the mat. And Albazi, unlike Ulanbekov and Bagatinov, he's an opportunistic grappler. Now his wrestling might not be as strong as either, but he's the kind of guy that if you're trying to get back to your feet and you give up your back, he'll jump on your back and he'll ride out control. And you see that in the Jose Torres fight. He has Torres' back standing for the majority of, I think it's round 2. So I think the line personally is pretty accurate. You've got, I think, Zhumagulov's a slight favourite. Let me just bring up the card. The odds, rather. Zhumagulov is basically a pick and fight. I kind of agree with that. I think it's a hard one to call because the worry is Torres, if he does get, Albazi, if he does get stuck on the feet, he's probably going to be outmatched. I think the pressure, the volume, I think it'd be too much for him. And he did slow down in that Torres fight as well. So that's a concern. And I think he showed a little bit of dodgy fight IQ against Torres. Like he might have got away with pulling guard against the lesser competition he'd been facing. But I'm sure in round 3 he pulled guard at one point. Can't be doing that at this level. So, and Malcolm Gordon, I know he triangled Malcolm Gordon off of his back, but Malcolm Gordon was never UFC quality. Real questionable signing there by the UFC. This is a step up in competition for him. This is Jose Torres type step up. So, honestly, tough one to call at pick'em. I'm not seeing any value either side. I think it's a true pick'em fight. I'm just going to pick Albazi just because he is an ever so slight underdog, and I think it's a pick'em. I don't think there's any value though on that line. I'm just picking him because he's a dog, and even though it's ever so slight, and I can see a path for him. I can see him grounding Zhumagulov, and maybe latching onto his back, having an extended period of control. He needs to look for 2 rounds to nick this fight. But I think it's going to be close either way, and I don't have confidence either way in that fight. So I'm going to go Albazi, but definitely wouldn't surprise me if he can't control Zhumagulov for long enough to sway it with the judges, and I see him getting outstruck on the feet. And if Zhumagulov does constantly work his way back to his feet and he can't hold him down for extended periods, I can see Albazi slowing down as well. So, but the Torres fight was a little while ago. It was back in April. It's nearly 2 years ago. He's a young guy. No, I'm going to change my. Yeah, I'm going to stick with Albazi. It was a couple of years ago. He's 27. You've got to think he's made some necessary adjustments. I'm going to pick Albazi still, but it's definitely not a confident pick. Next fight on the card, guys, we've got Movsar Evloev against Nick Lentz. So this is a fight that's put together quite late. It says it's at a catch weight of £150 actually. So Nick Lentz fought a lot of his career at 150, and then he's moved back to 155. Sorry, and he's moved back down to 145, which I remember questioning at the time. So I remember he had a point where he tried cutting the weight, and I think his kidney shut down on him. He had like a serious issue, but I mean he's made the weight safely once or twice since. But this is a tough fight for him against Evloev. I mean Nick Lentz, he's at Sanford now. He has improved. His striking's improved. His striking's a lot better than it was, and he's got a strong wrestling background. He's always been durable, Nick, but I just feel he's at the end of his career. He's 36 years of age. He's coming off losses to Arnold Allen and Charles Oliveira. He got a good win over Scott Holtzman, where he kind of hung on. He was in trouble in the 3rd round. He hung on, got the victory. But I just think Evloev is a tough fight for him. Evloev, not entirely sure where I think his ceiling is yet, but his striking is definitely improving, which was his weakness. But he's definitely making some improvements there. I think he's been working at ATT for a while now. His wrestling is excellent, really good scrambles. I mean, you saw in the last fight against Grundy, Grundy hit some nice quick takedowns on him, but his scrambling's just on another level. Nick Lentz isn't going to be able to get his wrestling going here, and Evloev's gas tank is pretty impressive. Striking coming together, offensive and defensive wrestling is decent. He had a close fight with Enrique Barzola, but Barzola's he's kind of a tough guy to look good against, because if your striking isn't great, because Evloev's striking, I think it's improved since that Barzola fight, but it was fairly close on the feet, and Barzola's a real scrambly guy. He's hard to hold down, so it was basically a kickboxing match against Grundy. Grundy started to slow down in that fight, and he got hurt as well from Evloev on the feet. It was just an impressive performance from Evloev, and I just think their careers are going in different directions. Evloev's 10 years younger. When you look at stats, and I'm not a big man for stats with regards to MMA betting, but you do have stats that do favour the younger guys when there's an age gap of, I'm not sure, but 10 years, you're definitely going to find that the guy 10 years younger is winning a lot more than the guy 10 years older. Careers are going in different directions. Evloev's unbeaten. He's minus 450 here, so there is no value on him. I'm sure people are chucking him in parlays and that. But even though there's no value, like I always say, I will pick where I feel there's value as a general rule of thumb, but I won't always. And this is a case of where I don't think there's any value, but I'm not picking against Evloev here. I think he's going to win. Nick Lentz, I think he's guillotine or bust, really. And I don't see him catching Evloev with it unless it's really early in the fight. And the thing with Nick Lentz as well is the optics never look good for him. He cuts really easily. His face just looks a mess after every fight. And, Evloev's the kind that he can maybe fight a little bit close sometimes, but I just do not see him losing this fight. But, I think if there's any value, it's looking at maybe Evloev by a decision, because Nick Lentz is durable. He's only been stopped by Oliveira, knocked him out. If you look at his record, and he's got 5 losses inside the distance, but I don't think any of them are really that recent. The Charles Oliveira one, obviously, Charles Oliveira guillotined him. So, his last 2 losses inside the distance to Charles Oliveira. Before that, you've got to go back to Evan Dunham, and I think that was a cut stoppage. So it's not, not really a TKO per se. And then you've got Charles Oliveira again when they had the no contest. So, aside from Charles Oliveira, he's not really been stopped for, it was a doctor stoppage again against Mark Marino back in 2007. So I assume that was a cut probably again. So, the guy's durable. The guy's very durable. So I think Evloev will be making a big statement if you can get him out of there. But Evloev is a bit of a decision fighter. So I think if you're going to bet the fight, if you really want to bet Evloev, I think the value is looking at the decision line, which let's have a look what it is first. It's probably even money-ish, I assume. Evloev by decision. No, it's worse. It's minus 150. Yeah, I don't love playing props at big minus money like that. And as durable as Lentz is, I do think he's on the way out. He had a bad eye injury as well in that fight with Arnold Allen. It caused him a lot of problems. Is he just turning up for a paycheck? I don't like speculating on something like that. Nick Lentz is someone that's going to, he is going to fight. He's not going to turn up and just fold. So, I probably should take that back. But it's just a bit pricey. It's just a past fight guy. But, I kind of understand why people will be putting him in parlays. It's not really my style. I'm not saying you should be doing that with minus 400 or so. But, I'm sure people are doing it. And I bet by fight night, his line's going to be up at probably closer to minus 600. So Evloev there for me. So last fight on the Fight Pass prelims is Andrew Sanchez against Muradov. Muradov he fights out of the Czech Republic. That's where he trains. He is signed, I think, to Floyd Mayweather, which still not sure why he's been signed by Floyd. I'm not aware of Floyd having signed any other MMA fighters, but I know that last time he thought he was with Floyd. I don't know if that is still the case, but it's just still can't work it out. But yeah, he trains in the Czech Republic. So he works a lot with Carlos Vemola when Vemola is there, as opposed to training at London Shoot in London. He's a striker. He's got a very in and out style, basically. He'll come in to land shots, then he'll come back out, he'll circle around. In and out style, basically. Made his debut on short notice against Chirico. I bet him there. He was like a plus 150 underdog. And it was a close fight. First round was very close. Second round he won. Third round he gassed badly and Chirico won the fight. And he got a unanimous decision, actually. I thought it was a split for some reason, but it was unanimous. Then he had a bit of a gimme fight, really, for his style against Trevor Smith. Great fight for him to look good in. Trevor Smith, slow, plodding fighter. Muradov, quick, in and out style. Always going to be a tough fight for Trevor Smith. And Muradov got the knockout in the third round there. So we've not seen him for over a year. He's taken on Andrew Sanchez, who's gone through a bit of a transformation since switching over to TriStar. He had a big issue, Sanchez, of coming out fast. He's got big power, loading up and gassing out. And the Ryan James fight is an example of that, and so is the Anthony Smith fight, back-to-back fights. Ryan James, he had in all sorts of trouble in round one, punched himself out going for the finish and ended up getting stopped in the third round. And Anthony Smith, he was 2 rounds up against, and then his cardio just died on him. I think it was early round 3, he was looking all right, and then suddenly, a minute or two into round 3, he just suddenly looks exhausted. But he changed things up. He went to TriStar, and he has looked better since. He put in a solid 3-round win over Marcus Perez, where his cardio was fine. Now the cardio issue did rear its head again against Barrio, but Barrio is the kind of guy that he is likely to bring out cardio concerns because he's not the best fighter in the world, Barrio, but he is. He will move forward. He's a lump. He keep coming, and if you can't get rid of him, he's just going to wear on you, and that's what happened there. Sanchez started the fight well. He had a rough round 2, looking exhausted at the end of the second round. Ate some big shots, but round 3, fair play to him. He managed to get his cardio his wrestling going, and he ground out the third round. I remember bet Sanchez in that fight, like pre-bet him, and I bought out at some point in round 2 because it just looked like it was going to be Barrio taking over. But he managed to grind out the 3rd round, even though he was tired. Then he had the Marvin Vettori fight, where he just struggled with. I mean, Marvin, we know how good Marvin is now. He just struggled with Marvin's boxing. Couldn't get his clinch game going. He was just stuck on the feet with him. The fight got a little bit more competitive. The first round was very one-sided. Rounds 2 and 3 were a bit more competitive. But yeah, he lost handily there. But his cardio did hold up over the 3 rounds. His cardio never looked in trouble. And then he's coming off the knockout win over Wellington Turman, where kind of managed to drag Wellington into a bit of a brawl, and Sanchez's power surfaced again for the first time we've really seen him hurt someone since the Ryan James fight. So he can crack, but what he does a lot better now is he's a lot better at kind of putting volume together, but not putting everything into his shots. It's obviously something they've worked hard on at TriStar. So Muradov has the advantage standing here. He's going to try and move in and out. He's going to try and pick apart Sanchez. Sanchez I know he's got a couple of KO losses, but I think his chin's actually pretty solid. I think the Smith and James KOs were a lot to do with him being exhausted. I think in terms of actually taking a shot, he's got a solid chin. I think Sanchez here, the game plan, I think he would have preferred this fight at the Apex with a smaller cage, but it's not. It's in the bigger cage. I think he really needs to try and get his clinch game going here against Muradov. Try and close the gap, try and get him on the fence, try and lean on him. I always remember GSP saying Sanchez has one of the best clinch game, or the best clinch game, I think he said, that he's ever come across on the fence. So if Sanchez can get him on the fence, he might be able to wear Muradov out. Muradov, it was short notice, but he did slow down a lot in round 3 against Jericho. If Sanchez can get some extended periods of clinch work going on the fence, an area where Muradov's probably not been tested in his fights. A lot of his fights are on the European scene. Something like that could wear on Muradov. And the key for Sanchez here is if he can slow Muradov down, then he can start to get his striking going a bit better. And he might even open up the takedowns for him as well. So Muradov's going to, as I said, he's going to try and be in and out, use his speed advantage. I think Reach has only got about an inch on him, but he is the better striker in that sense. But Sanchez's striking's come along as well. He's more of a volume striker now as opposed to just trying to load up on the power. But Muradov is the better technical striker here. But Sanchez's path is getting that clinch game going, leaning on Muradov and trying to wear him out. So the fight's fairly closely lined. I think Sanchez now is... You can get kind of plus 115 on him, plus 120 some places. I'm going to pick the underdog here. I'm going to go with Sanchez. I'm not sold on Muradov. I had a big bet on Kevin Holland against Muradov, and I know this is a different fight stylistically and styles make fights, but I do see a path for Sanchez here. I think I'm sure he'll come in with the correct game plan. I know people knock TriStar in terms of fighters not being aggressive enough, point scoring, and so forth. But he is going to have a smart game plan here, and I'm sure the game plan is going to be to get the clinch going. And I think it will work against Muradov. I know it's a big cage, and the worry is Sanchez can't cut him off or pressure him against the cage to get the clinch work going. But I think he's just got to be persistent with it. Even if he doesn't have much draw in round 1, just keep to that game plan. Keep Muradov moving, make him work. He has that in and out style. There's a lot of movement to his style. You've got to keep the pressure on him. Start to get to him. So I'm going to lean Sanchez, probably by decision, with Muradov slowing down and Sanchez coming more and more into the fight. So those odds I had to take the risk on Sanchez personally. I line it. I don't think there's a great deal of value there. I line it, personally I've got it more as a pick on fight, so there's not a great deal of value, but I'm going to go with the dog there in Andrew Sanchez. Next fight on the card, Khalil Roundtree taking on Marcin Prashino. This is Prashino's 4th fight in a row against a southpaw in the UFC. Do you know what happened in the last 3 fights against southpaws in the UFC for Prashino? He got KO'd in round 1. You look at his record, and he's got 1 decision back in 2016, but there's a long list of round 1 wins for him. So he's in the UFC. He's been knocked out every fight in round one, and his record generally is round one wins. So I just wonder where he's at. You've had 3 fights in the UFC. You've been knocked out in all 3 of them. The Rodriguez fight was only in August, and these aren't, kind of hasty stoppages. I mean, Sam Alvey, twice he ran into that right hook, and he wasn't out cold, but he was out on his feet. And Kalaev put him out. Rodriguez put him out. Where's the guy's confidence? Where's his head at? They've given him another striker here. The UFC know what they're doing here, or as I like to say, they like to think they know what they're doing. I said that regarding the Buckley fight. The UFC like to think they know what they're doing here, and I expected Buckley to win, but look what happened. The man they was trying to hype got knocked out in the first round. So it is Khalil Roundtree. He's not the most trustworthy guy. He's coming off a knockout loss himself to Kutalaba. Ground and pound knockout loss, albeit. Before that, he had the spectacular win over Eric Anders, which, guys, nearly 2 years ago. Can you believe that? Before that, he lost to Johnny Walker. Before that, he knocked out Gokhan Saki. And then before that, he had that loss to Macau, where he came out strong in round 1, completely gassed, and he lost the decision, albeit it got overturned. So, Khalil made a lot of changes after that fight. He went out to Thailand, where he's been training for this camp as well. You saw that against Eric Anders. He looked spectacular in that fight. But is that a testament to how bad Eric Anders is? Is it a combination of both, his improvements plus how bad Anders is? I don't know. But Prochino is, he's probably the worst opponent he's faced since Daniel Jolly. Let's be real. 3 round 1 knockouts is not a good look. So I've got to go with Roundtree here. Roundtree's got serious power. He's in the UFC. He's knocked everyone out that he's beaten, I believe. Jolly, Craig, Saki. Now, he didn't knock out Anders, but oh my God, how many times did he drop him? I think he dropped him about 4 times in the fight. Eric Anders is unbelievably tough. I just can't see Prochino standing up to the firepower. He's got a shot. It's light heavyweight. One shot changes the game, but I just see him. I unfortunately see him having the misfortune to have lost 4 times in a row in the UFC and all in round 1. And I just wonder where he's going to be at. Is he going to be tentative? Is he just going to say, sod it, I'm just going to come out all guns blazing? I don't know. But Roundtree for me, he's minus 300. That line's kind of held. Even the parlay bettors seem a bit hesitant to throw Roundtree in. I wonder if it'll get bet up a bit closer to the fight. So I understand the reservations, but I've got to pick Roundtree there. I just have zero faith in Prochino here, and mentally, he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, and it's got to be concerning coming off 3 straight knockout losses as well for your health. So I'll go with Roundtree there. Next fight, we've got Julianna Peña taking on Sara McMann. And I have a fair few people that have bet McMann here. No one's confident enough that I know anyway to bet McMann big, and rightly so, because she's as I often refer to on this podcast, she's what I class as a flake, and I don't trust flakes. I don't like betting them, especially as favourites. Kind of last year, I've kind of started to draw a line in the sand there in terms of betting flakes. Even as underdogs, I'm going to try and avoid it as much as I can, because the flakes flake at the end of the day. That's the problem with betting them. And Sara McMann, for me, falls into that category. She's 40 years of age now. She's physically, she's in phenomenal shape. She's better shape than probably most 30-year-olds, but she just has that flakiness to me. I liked her being a Team Alpha male, but she's not there anymore. Looks like she's kind of runs her own gym now. She had that return fight against Lena Landsberg, where I did better against Lena. I hesitated on it all week, and I ended up betting her just before the fight, the day of the fight. I think I bet her, just because stylistically it was such a good fight for her, and she got a comfortable decision there. We all know about her wrestling background. She's a medalist at the Olympic Games, excellent wrestling. She's very physical, but she just has those moments where she just implodes. We saw it against Marion Renault, winning the fight comfortably, and she gets rocked in the second round on the feet. ends up hitting a takedown and gets triangled. We saw it against Ketlin Vieira. Won round 1, gets taken down round 2, instant subbed. She got subbed with a one-arm triangle. It looked like a quick job to me. I've got to be honest. A one-arm triangle. I'm sure it was uncomfortable. I wasn't there. I wasn't the one being choked, but a one-arm triangle, it's a tough submission to finish with one arm. And I think she was in half guard as well. I think it was a bit of a quick job, bit of a panic job. Even with Marion Renault, now that triangle was locked in. It was tight. I'm not disputing that. But just the way, if you're tapping out to it, and I know this is easy for me to say, I'm not the one in there getting punched in the head, getting choked out. But for me, I think you should be, especially a choke. A choke, isn't particularly, you're not going to break a nut. There's not really, as long as you're not getting choked out every week, there's not, any long-term damage there really. And I know it's an uncomfortable position. I've trained enough myself. I know what it's like to be put out, to see stars. But, you're in a fight, you're in the UFC. And I just think when she let go of that choke, I think McMann should have been gasping for air, or at least falling back on her ass like she was lacking oxygen. But she just sat there like, oh, I've lost. Like, it wasn't like she really fought that to the end for me. I just think there's a bit of quit in her. And I always remember the Alexis Davis fight. Now I know she won that fight, but I remember her going back to her stall after round 1, and I didn't rewatch that fight when I done tape here, but there was some kind of issue with her eye, and it really sounded like she was quitting. And fair play, she came out and got the winning round 2, but I just hate that talk in the corner as well when someone sounds like they're quitting. There's just something there for me with McMann that I just don't trust. And as I say, I get why people are betting her here. Julianna Peña, when I done tape, I thought I was going to like Peña, but her takedown defence is absolutely atrocious. She just doesn't have any takedown defence. But I can't shake this feeling I have that either McMann is going to do something dumb and get subbed from the bottom, or Julianna Peña just ends up on top at one point. And I don't like the thought of McMann on her back against Julianna Peña. Now, I know McMahon's got a very strong wrestling base, but, Peña, she's a scrambler, she's a dog. You see the Kat Zingano fight, she's getting out grappled for the first half of the fight, and then she starts getting on top. You see it against Nico Montano as well, struggling the first half of the fight, but then she starts getting on top. She took down Valentina Shevchenko as well. I know, their wrestling doesn't pale in comparison to Sarah McMahon's, but I just don't trust Sara. I just don't trust her, and I just don't like. I think Peña's got the grit. She's not going to flake. So I'm going to pick Peña here. I completely get, like I said, why people would bet McMahon, because McMahon could blanket her for 3 rounds. It's definitely possible. But I just think there's going to be a point where there's a turning point in this fight, and I've just got to pick Peña. I've not bet it. The line's not really wide enough. It's more of a gut feeling, this one. So I can't even give you a method to the madness, really, besides saying McMahon just smells like a quitter to me. And I don't like putting my money on those types of fighters. I'm really trying to avoid it this year. You're going to see the ultimate test when we've got Michael Johnson coming up in a week or 2. But no, I'm definitely not betting Michael, by the way, especially at those odds. And I'm so glad that he is due, so it isn't enticing me at all. But I'm going to go with Peña there. I'm going to pick Peña as a slight underdog, but I'm relying on a quick job. I think if McMahon can stay composed, fight smart, not do anything silly, then she probably wins the decision. But I've just got this feeling that she's gonna do something silly and end up getting finished. Next, we've got Brad Tavares taking on Shoeface Antônio Carlos Júnior. Look, stylistically, this is a good fight in theory for Brad Tavares. He's always had solid takedown defence. He's got solid striking. The worry for me with Brad is, he's 33 years of age now, and we haven't seen him really for 2.5 years. The last time we saw him properly was against Adesanya, where he just got, he got beaten up for 5 rounds.
since then we've seen him once against Edmund Shabazian, where he quickly got taken out in the first round. So for me, that doesn't tell me anything about him, except, a knockout loss is never good for longevity. And, as I say, it's 2.5 years since we've seen him properly. I mean, he's had a lot of injury problems, which is a concern. And I just wonder if he's just maybe going to start regressing. I'm speculating here. But, a general rule of thumb for me, and like I say, nothing's ever set in stone, but a general rule of thumb for me is I don't like betting guys coming back off long layoffs. And Brad Tavares, for me, is basically coming off a 2.5 year layoff for me. I've not seen his game properly in 2.5 years. That's a long time. And Carlos Jr., I bet Carlos Jr. against Uriah Hall, and it was a close fight. I'm not going to say it was a robbery. It could have gone either way, but he's not fought since. It's been by the time he gets back in the cage, we're talking almost 18 months since we last saw Carlos Jr. So it's kind of less of a concern for me, the layoff for Shoeface, just because he's a bit younger, he's got less mileage on him. He's not been injury ravaged throughout his career like Brad Tavares as well. But on the feet, no doubt Brad Tavares is the better striker. But Carlos Jr., very good grappler. His takedown game is pretty solid. It's not bad. Issue he's had in fights is slowing down. You saw it in the Ian Heinisch fight where he just got out scrambled, really tired him out. And we've seen it in other fights of his where he's slowed down, like the Daniel Kelly fight, he's slowed down in. So that's a concern. But this is just a really tough fight for me to call. I mean, much like the last fight, we might pick Peña. I'm not confident here. I mean, it's a no fight for me, but actually money's coming on Shoeface. Last time I looked, Tavares was about -150, but he's come down to most places he's -140, -135 now. I just wonder what Brad we get, because stylistically it could be a decent fight. And has Brad ever been subbed? Let's have a quick look. I don't think he has. I know he's been knocked out a few times now. I don't think that's a concern here. I mean, yeah, he's never been subbed. But you do a quick scan of his record. He's never really fought anyone like Shoeface in terms of the submission threat. Tails latest, but he just beat Tails up on the feet. So this is a really hard one for me to call. Honestly, I've got no lean on the fight here. Carlos Jr. I'm gonna go with the dog. I'm gonna pick Carlos Jr. just because I'm just concerned Brad's on a bit of a decline. This is a bit of a gut feel, this one, but I just don't like that 2.5 year layoff. I know it's not strictly 2.5 year layoff, but the one fight he's had in 2.5 years, which was over a year ago, he got knocked out in the first round. And I know that's not a threat here, but I just wonder if Shoeface can just do enough to grind out. I mean, I see it being a close fight either way. I don't think he gets finished. And if he does slow down, and this could be the fight could turn kind of, it could be one of those where Shoeface starts well, but he starts to slow down, starts to have less success with his takedowns, and then gets stuck on the feet and he starts to get picked apart. But I'm going to pick Shoeface just because he's the underdog, but I haven't bet it. I'm not betting the fight. I don't like the layoff for Tavares. I don't love the layoff for Shoeface either. I'm not sure why Shoeface was out for so long. So I'll go with Junior as the slight underdog, but I don't think there's any value on the fight, to be completely honest, guys. Next fight on the card we have, so last preliminary fight, we've got Nasrat Haqparast taking on Arman. I can't remember how you pronounce his surname, so I'm not going to entertain you by butchering it. I went into tape here thinking that Nasrat might be live. The odds, I mean, since I've taped it, I think more money's actually coming on Arman. He's now like -275, which, I mean, that's definitely too wide for me. And when I taped it, I think he was about -220 or so, which again, I wasn't racing to bet Arman, but I could kind of, I can see why people like Arman here after doing tape. Let me just bring up their records just to refresh myself, because this is one that I did tape. I think I taped this over Christmas, so it's been a few weeks. But basically this is going to come down to, I thought it was going to come down to grappler versus striker. But when you watch Arman's fight against Davy Hamos, now I know Davy isn't Nasrat on the feet, but you could definitely see Arman's making improvements in his stand-up. Stand-up actually looked pretty good against Davy Hamos. Now, Hamos isn't Nasrat on the feet. He's definitely going to have more coming back at him against Nasrat than he did from Davy, but his stand-up looked like it really improved from the Mercier fight. And, the fights were a year apart, and this is what some youngsters can do in a year. They can make such a big improvement. I mean, Arman's only 24 years of age. Nasrat, I think, is 25. So there was big improvement on the feet there. Last time we saw Arman was back in July. So he's had another, 5 months or so. So there could be further improvement here. I know he was spending some time I think he was at American Top Team for a little while, but I don't think he's there anymore. It looks like he's been training in Los Angeles when I looked at his Instagram, and it looked like he'd been spending some time with Edmund, Ronda's old coach. But I'm not entirely sure what his setup is in Los Angeles. But he's had another 5-6 months to improve, and I wouldn't put it past him based on the Davy Hamos performance on the feet. But his bread and butter is his wrestling. Very good wrestling. I bet him in the fight against Mercier, and he won the first round. He basically, a lot of it was Mercier pinned against the fence. Now, what Arman does have is he's not just an open space double leg shooter like Nasrat's last opponent, Alex Munoz. Alex, all he had was an open space double leg, which Nasrat shut down, except for right at the start of the fight. He quickly got back to his feet. That's all Nasrat had to shut down there. Against Arman, you're not going to have that. He's going to pose more questions. He's definitely more of a chain wrestler. He's going to shoot for a single leg, put you on the fence, and he's going to try and chain stuff together. And we just haven't seen Nasrat in that position. We haven't seen it. You've got to go back to... So it's a tough one to get a read on in terms of Nasrat's wrestling, because it's not really been tested since the Held fight that he took on short notice, and we're going back over 3 years. Struggle with the takedowns there. I mean, you watch the Alex Munoz fight, and it seems to have clearly improved. And he's young, he's very hungry. I'm sure he's been working it diligently. And, he, except for the first takedown, he stuffs Alex Munoz pretty comfortably all night. Showed there was one point where Munoz made a really nice transition, but it was Nasrat scrambled really well. So he's clearly improved it, but he's going to face more of a chain wrestler here, a guy that's going to come after him on the fence. He's going to pose questions of his takedown ability against the fence. He's not just going to be open space. And, in Arman, if he can't get a takedown, because his takedowns aren't phenomenal, but he does control you well on the fence. You go and watch the first round of the Mercier fight. Just basically, Mercier can't do anything in that first round, can't get off the fence. He's stuck there. Second round, Mercier wins. He edges it with the striking. And as I say, I bet Arman there, and I was very nervous going into round 3, but kind of got a bit fortunate perhaps. Mercier, for some reason, went for a takedown, and in the transition, he ends up on his back, and he couldn't get back up, basically. So this is the thing here. On the feet, I do give the edge to Nasrat. He's got very fast hands. Fights out of the southpaw stance. I think Arman's a southpaw as well. Let me just double check that. 1 second. Oh, is he? No, I think he's orthodox, actually, Arman. So the one question mark I had was, I wonder how the double leg for Arman will work here facing a southpaw fighter. But what I did notice is he will shoot from the southpaw stance as well. And he'll do it off like he'll throw a strike and transition to southpaw as he throws the strike, and then he'll shoot. So he's not just limited to shooting orthodox, and he will go for the single leg as well, put you on the fence and then chain wrestle from there. So it is a tough fight for Nasrat. I can see after tape, it certainly put me off betting him. But the only value I was really interested in looking at was Arman by decision. And let's just have a quick look what it is. Arman by decision. I bet it's going to be rubbish. -120. Kind of what I expected. It's not great. Like I say, props, I don't like playing props at a minus number, but I don't think he finishes Nasrat. But it's just a big unknown. How's Nasrat going to cope with the kind of chain wrestling approach of Arman? I do give him the edge on the feet. If you said to me it's gonna play out on the feet, I'd be all over Nasrat at those odds, plus 220. But Arman's going to come and wrestle here, and he's not just an open space shot type wrestler, and we just don't know how Nasrat's going to look. Arman definitely looks the bigger guy physically. Nasrat isn't the biggest lightweight, but I think he makes up for that with his speed. He's really fast, got really quick hands, he's got power in his hands. Nasrat's weakness is being pushed onto the back foot in the striking exchanges, but I think he'll be the one that will be dictating here. So, look, at these odds, there's a big unknown with Nasrat's clinch wrestling, but at these odds, I think it's Nasrat or pass. I mean, I definitely can't play that line on Arman, -275, plus 220 on Nasrat. I think that's where the value is. So, I do think Arman wins a decision, but based on the odds, I'm going to pick Nasrat at them odds. Am I going to bet it myself? I haven't yet. It will be tempting. If I can get plus 250, it's going to be really tempting. Very tempting. I think I just have to take it then. At the moment, I'm holding, but I'm going to pick Nasrat just based on the odds. But as I say, it's not a massively confident pick. I do lean Arman, but the odds for me are a bit wide. Next fight on the card, we've got... This is the main card now. Marina Rodriguez, Amanda Ribas. So, Marina Rodriguez, very good striker. For a lady, very aggressive, very dangerous. Real savage. Which you don't often see in women's MMA. But Marina Rodriguez definitely has that going for her. A really nice stand-up. The weakness with her is her takedown defense. I had some money on her in her last fight against Haqparast, and just the way Esparza is a good wrestler for women's MMA, but she was just getting taken down too easy for me. She had the Cynthia Calvillo fight where she butchered Cynthia on the feet. She got taken down, I think, in round 1, but she actually got back to her feet, and then she got taken down again, I think, at the end of the round, and the round finished, perhaps luckily for Marina, when you look at what happened in round 3, where she ended up being a draw because she just got hammered in round 3. She did eventually get back to her feet, but she was really close to being finished. And she got a draw around the Marcos as well, because again, she lost around 10-8 to Randa Marcos, round 1, because she just got controlled on the mat, mounted, just completely dominated. I remember I hit the draw on that one on live bet. Back before the books used to adjust the draw odds. I think I got 50 to 1 or something. Won $5,000 on it. Back when the good days when I used to have bet 365. But that's obviously been a weakness. I mean, Jessica Aguilar nearly armbarred her. She nearly got caught in an armbar there. Tisha Torres just couldn't get her to the mat. So, this is her weakness on the ground. On the feet, if every fight of hers played out on the feet, and takedowns weren't allowed, she'd be challenging for the title. She's got really, really good stand-up. Amanda Ribas, she's competent on the feet, aggressive. I like her stand-up. If you said to me this fight's going to play out on the feet, I would definitely be on Marina Rodriguez, especially at these odds. But Ribas, she's got a judoka background. I think she was on the Brazilian judoka team. And we've seen her takedowns. She isn't someone generally that will shoot double legs in open space. She likes to get you on the fence, basically, and she will hit body lock takedowns. I think against Paige Van Zandt, she even hit a head and arm throw, which, don't love it, but she's probably safe doing it against someone like Marina Rodriguez, who has been taken down with a head and arm. I remember Randa Marcos hit it on her, and I just think there's a big skill discrepancy in the grappling. But I think that's the only time I've seen Amanda do that. Normally, it is like body locks, hip throws, hit some lovely hip throws on Mackenzie Dern. I just think she's going to be able to get the fight to the floor, and I don't think Marina's going to be able to get back to her feet when she's taken down. The line is wide. Women's MMA. I always talk about women's MMA and betting the underdog in lower level women's MMA. This isn't a lower level women's MMA fight. But, I mean, minus 300 is wide. But I'm not picking against Amanda here just because I just think it's just a big hole in Marina's game. And I just think Ribas will be able to get the fight to the mat. And the problem is as well, as good as Marina's stand-up is, women's MMA, it's just hard for them to finish fights on the feet. So you're probably relying on Marina winning the decision, and Ribas, I mean, it's women's MMA, it probably goes to a decision, but it wouldn't shock me if she finished her on the mat, because there is a big skill discrepancy on the mat, and Ribas could definitely lock up a submission. I bet the under in Ribas' fight with Paige Van Zandt, because I thought she could submit her or pound her out. She is good on the mat. And it's a possibility here as well. But the money line's too wide. Let me just have a look at the props here. The over, sod that, minus 225, under minus plus 185, plus 200. Ribas TKO. Showing as plus 900 at Bet Online. I mean, it seems a bit wide for me. If she gets mount, starts pounding her. I know she submitted Whitmire, but she was pounding her. You get a referee stoppage, and Ribas wins by submission, plus 300. Look, I'm not a massive prop player, just because it's just not my style of betting, and it's always been hard for me to get much money down on the props. But I mean, the KO seems quite wide. But the question is, how often do you get a women's TKO from ground and pound? I think it's pretty rare, to be honest. So maybe it's a bit of a trap bet. Submission plus 300. It might be worth a little play. I don't love the line. I would have liked it a bit wider. But if you think Ribas is going to go for takedowns, which I do, this fight could play out on the mat for a long period, and I think there's a big skill discrepancy down there. I know Rodriguez survived against Marcos, and she did survive against Cynthia, but she was in big trouble against Cynthia. I know Cynthia's got a very, very solid submission game, but I think, because I just don't think there's any value on the money lines there. That's why I'm just looking at these props. So have a look at the props. I think that's the only value there, but I am still going to pick Ribas, even though the line is just too wide for me. Matt Frevola, Ottman, Azaitar next. Look, I'm picking Ottman here. I don't love the line. I haven't bet it. I did bet him in his last fight when he was the underdog. I had a real strong feeling on that fight, and I should have gone a lot bigger than I did. But I just put, I think, like half a unit I threw on Ottman, because there are question marks with Ottman. He's 13-0. He is due a loss. This is, I just don't think he's skilled enough to maintain that zero for too long in the UFC. But I did really like him against Worthy, just because I had really big question marks about Worthy's chin, and the fight played out exactly how I thought. He's clearly got big power, put away Worthy. Timu Packalén KO was nasty, but we haven't seen his takedown defense since I think it's the Martinez fight, which is over 3 years ago. Now, over 3 years ago, it wasn't good. It was bad. And Matt Frevola is definitely the best wrestler he's faced. So there's definitely a path to victory here for Frevola, unless Ottman's improved his wrestling. But we just don't know. I think he looks better on the feet than he did on the regional scene. I've got to assume he's been putting the work in to improve his wrestling. But it is a question mark. And Frevola's, I'd be very surprised if he can just stuff Frevola full stop. Frevola's top control isn't the greatest. He does give paths for you to get back to your feet. But, Ottman's ground game, it's a big question mark. On the feet, Frevola gets rocked every fight, and Ottman cracks. My gut just says he's gonna catch Frevola and knock him out. But there's definitely a path for Frevola here, and I definitely understand why I know people that have bet Frevola here, because if the wrestling isn't shored up, Frevola's got good takedowns, and although I say he gets rocked every fight, which he does, I think he's only been knocked out once, and that was against Paulo Hayes. He was rocked against Venata. He survived. Jaden Turner had him rocked. Louis Peña Louis Peña, to be fair, caught him with a flying knee. It'd probably rock anyone. But, his game is tough, and you've got to think he's not going to come out here and brawl with Ottman, because Frevola's striking is pretty wild. He's more of a brawler type, but you've got to think he's going to go to his wrestling here. And it'll also be interesting to see how Ottman's cardio holds up, because that fight that I mentioned was the last fight where we saw his takedown defence. It's the last fight where he's been past the first round. He's not been past round 1 since that fight, which, as I said, over 3 years ago. So there's just too many question marks for me to bet Ottman as a favourite, even though my gut says he's going to knock Frevola out. There's just question marks there. So plus 136. I'm going to have to pick Frevola. I don't like the pick, because I've just got this feeling Ottman's going to knock him out, and it stopped me betting Frevola. But I think the value is probably with Frevola, if I'm honest. But like I say, it's just one of them fights. I just don't like betting on it, just because I'm speculating Ottman's takedown defence. I think it will be better, but I don't think it's going to be enough to completely shut down Frevola's wrestling game. But it's speculation on my part. But to be honest, the value's with Frevola for me, so I'm going to have to pick him at plus 135 you can get. So Frevola for me. Next, Jessica Raya taking on Joanne Calderwood. I saw this open. This is before I done tape, and I saw Raya was like plus 150, which really surprised me. Seemed like a pick'em type of fight, and possibly a bit of an overreaction to her loss to Cynthia Calvillo. I bet against Cynthia. I thought she would do a better job defending the takedowns. I thought the size might play a factor as well. Cynthia X115, her X135. Didn't play out like that. I think I looked a little bit off in that fight. She had a really bad weight cut. I know her camp wasn't ideal. She was literally training out of her garage. She had it converted. This was back when the gyms were all shut everywhere. I know everyone had problems and whatnot. But she just looked off for me in that fight. Something didn't look right for me, and I can't remember what it was, but some medical problem that she said she wasn't sure what it was, but it had been affecting her training for her last couple of fights. She actually found out what it was, and she had surgery for it after the Calvillo fight. I can't remember what it was now. So hopefully we're going to get a better eye here. I mean, she's back training properly in the gym. I'm looking at her Instagram. She had that surgery to fix that problem. I can't remember what it was now. And she obviously struggled with a weight cut as well. So, if you took the early line on I think that was the right play. Getting that plus 150, even plus 140, plus 130, plus 120. I think now you're probably best off waiting if you are interested in waiting for the weigh-ins to see if she makes weight okay, because she has struggled a couple of times. Who else did she miss weight? I'm sure she missed weight in another fight. So she missed against Cynthia. Let me just bring up her record. I think she only just missed against Cynthia, but she just looked she didn't look good at all at the weigh-in. Kind of struggling to pose. Let me just bring up one sec. I'm sure she's missed a couple of times. So she missed against Cynthia. Yeah, 0.3 of a pound. She missed against Vivi? Yeah, she missed against Vivi as well. So you've got 2 fights in a row. After making 125 comfortably, she, I'm just going back like 3 fights in a row. She made it no problem. And then last 2, yeah. So I think now, if you're interested in wait for the weigh-ins. Just see how see if she makes weight. And, you'd rather her come in like she did against Vivi, where she missed 6 pounds and, put in a solid performance. Cynthia, she really, really boiled herself down, and she just looked a bit flat to me in that fight. Wasn't the Jessica I was expecting. So, she's 34 years of age now. She's been around a while. I don't know, maybe, has the hunger, etc. She's moved down a division. She fell short with a title shot at 125. She's never going to win the title. So, what is her purpose now? Is she just fighting to pay bills? I know for the surgery it was like 20 odd grand, and I'm not sure she was financially in a great position to pay it. So you just wonder. It makes you question. But she has looked better at 125 generally. She came down. She beat Jessica Rose Clark. She beat Kalindra Farrier fight before that. She had a close fight with Caitlin Chikagan that she got a split decision win over. She obviously lost to Shevchenko. Then she had a good win over Araujo, and then she was coming off that loss to Cynthia Calvillo. So Jessica Rice, solid boxing. She's got pretty good takedown defence for a lady. Normally, I was a bit disappointed how it panned out in terms of the takedown defence against Cynthia. I thought she'd do better, especially with the size advantage. But I did notice that when I done tape, she had this habit of, I think it was throwing up like a front kick that can be caught for takedowns. And I did watch a bit of an interview with her the other week. It was not long after the Cynthia fight, and she did acknowledge that she shouldn't have been throwing the kicks. Something she needs to work on with regards to fight IQ. So, and funnily enough, Joanne Calderwood is actually pretty good at catching kicks and taking you down. She was doing it against Caitlin Chikagan. So hopefully she doesn't throw that front high kick, because I does have decent kicks. Like, she's got a good solid inside low kick. She really used it well against Araujo. Like, that's fine to throw. Inside low kicks are very hard to catch and hit a takedown off of, but she just has this habit of flicking up. I think it's like a lead front kick, and it just gets caught a lot. So she needs to be careful with regards to doing that against Joanne. But her game mainly is boxing. Joanne Calderwood is more of a Muay Thai striker. She's very kick heavy. So what Jessica Rye is going to have to do is she's going to have to get past the kick. She's going to have to apply pressure. If you watch the Caitlin Chikagan fight now, her most similar opponent to Jojo is Caitlin Chikagan. Now, Chikagan moves a lot more than Joanne Calderwood. She's got better footwork. But in terms of their style, Chikagan is fairly kick heavy. She's kind of adjusted her style a little bit. She does throw punches a bit more now, and she throws them with a bit more venom, but still a lot of kicks. And Jessica I mean, it was a really close fight. It could have gone either way for me. But Jessica I in that fight applied a lot of pressure. That's what you've got to do against a kicker like Calderwood. You've got to get her on the back foot. It makes kicks harder to throw. And she needs to apply pressure to get past the kicks so she can start landing her hands. And she done that well against Chikagan. She done it well against Araujo as well. And, Araujo cracks. She's a big puncher. But lost the first round. But then she came on strong against Vivi. Vivi just slowed down perhaps a little bit in that fight. And I don't expect Joanne Calderwood to, but she's got to be careful of the kicks, of throwing that front kick, because Joanne Calderwood, like I said, she started to mix grappling into her game recently. We saw it against Chikagan. She hit a few takedowns off of caught kicks. She took down Lipsky as well, actually. She used grappling against Lipsky. Even against Andrea Lee, she hit some takedowns. Andrea Lee really seemed to slow down in that fight. That was one that was in Abu Dhabi. She really seemed to struggle with the heat. Andrea Lee, not normally someone that slows down, but she really seemed to in that fight. And then Jennifer Myers, she took her down and got ultimately armbarred. But that is probably the best game plan for I to replicate there, because Jennifer Myers was really boxing her up before the takedown. She was applying pressure and she was landing hands. So that's the template for Aya to follow here. She's got to apply the pressure, pass the kicks, get her hands going, and it's a winnable fight for her. I mean, when I came away from tape, I kind of felt it was a bit of a pick-em. Aya's last performance wasn't great. She's, missing weight 2 fights in a row. I'd wait now. With the line's almost a pick-em now, which is, I kind of feel that's right. But I feel anyone who got the plus 120 or above, that's the right play on Aya. I think now you should wait for the weigh-ins. I don't feel there's a great deal of value now at pick-em line. But I'm going to pick Jessica Eye here. I'm going to pick her to bounce back, look sharper, look back to the eye that fought Vivi as opposed to the eye that fought Cynthia, and I'm not trying to discredit the Cynthia win. I just feel she didn't look herself in that fight. And Joanne Calderwood, I mean, she's just, I don't want to say she's a flake, but she's kind of, she's just had some moments, the Marina Moreau's fight where she got armbarred, and then Jennifer Meyer again getting, you shouldn't be getting armbarred in MMA, not twice in the UFC. It's, should see that stuff coming. So, I'm not going to call her a flake, but just, 2 armbar losses. She got guillotined. I know it was against Jessica Andrade, but you just don't see guillotines in women's MMA. Like, they hardly ever happen. And I know Andrade is a bit different to any other women fighter in terms of physicality, but you just don't normally see them. They're just free, they just raise an eyebrow when you look at them losses. But she is competent on the feet, and I wonder if I was going to try and mix in her wrestling here. She's got wrestling herself in her back pocket. Calderwood, it has been a staple of her game lately. I just don't think she's going to be able to get takedowns on Eye. As long as Eye's best here, I think she's going to stuff them. But Eye could definitely turn it around. So I'm going to go Eye. It's a close fight. I'm a little bit worried about Eye and where she's at, but equally with Calderwood, she's same age, I think, 34 as well. So, she trains out of, is it Extreme Couture where John Wood is? I think she's with John Wood. So she's, she's getting good training. Finally kind of settled at a team. But the pick for me is Eye. It's a close fight, but the pick is Eye. But as I say, I would wait. If you want to bet Eye, I would wait for the weigh-ins just to see how she looks. Co-main event is Dan Hooker taking on Michael Chandler. So I went away and done a fair bit of tape on Chandler here. This was one over Christmas, so I hope I'm not forgetting too much. And I wasn't blown away by Chandler, I've got to say. He's 34 years of age. He's going to be 35 in April. Grade A athlete, really good athlete, very explosive. 21-5. 9 KOs, 7 submissions. He's 5 losses now. 3 of them are KO losses. Now, I don't think he's been... The Brent Primus fight was the one where I think that was when he had the ankle injury. I'm sure that was Chandler that had the ankle injury. So, not really a KO loss. Lost to Patricio Ferreira. I watched that fight. He did get caught behind the ear there. Them KOs are always... I'm going to touch on that next when we talk about Poirier. Those KOs are just... They're just a little bit fluky. It doesn't really mean you've got a suspect chin. It's just, unfortunately, sometimes guys get caught behind there and it seems to shut the lights off. And he suffered a TKO loss years ago to Will Brooks in the 4th round. I haven't gone back and watched it. It's Will Brooks, so I'm assuming ground and pound maybe, but I could be wrong there. I haven't gone back and watched it. But I do have reservations about Chandler's chin. Now, Chandler is a good wrestler. Very good wrestler, very explosive. Can hit a nice double leg. Doesn't really do much from top. There isn't much, there isn't massive danger coming from him when he settles into top position. On the feet, he's got power in his right hand. I think it's his right hand. He's coming off wins over Benson Henderson and Sydney Outlaw, where he put them both away in the first round. The guy can crack. There's no doubt about it. But I do have question marks about his chin. I think it was the... See, this is what I'm trying to remember. I know Goiti hurt him at some point. I think it was a front kick to the face he hurt him with. And then it was the Brent Primus rematch where he got rocked as well. There was a point in that fight. I could be wrong here. So this is one that I've done weeks ago. There was definitely another fight where he got rocked. Maybe it was the Brandon Gertz fight. Maybe it was both of them. Definitely one of the two he got hurt in, maybe both of them. I do just have some reservations about Chandler's chin, I've got to say. And he's got a nice double leg. He can get you to the mat, but there's not really much of a danger for me. I don't see him submitting Dan Hooker, and I don't see him getting much going on the ground. And you've got to be careful shooting on Dan Hooker. He's got a really nasty guillotine. We saw that against Mark Diakese. He's got those long arms. It's a submission that he could lock up if you're not careful. So, and it's one of them where he's got those long arms, good leverage. It's tough to escape if you get tied up in it. And I mean, for me, this is a big step up in competition for Chandler. You know, he's coming off a win over Benson Henderson, but that isn't, you know, a prime Ben Henderson. He's on his way out, Henderson. You know, Sydney Outlaw. You know, he's a UFC quality. Brent Primus, Brandon Gertz, Goiti Yamuchi. You know, these are all wins against guys that, you know, this is a step up in competition. I know he fought Eddie Alvarez years ago, back in 2013, and they had a war. And I know Eddie Alvarez, you know, obviously was the champ in the UFC. So I'm not going to say, and he's actually got a win over Eddie Alvarez as well back in 2011. So I'm not going to come out and say, you know, he's definitely going to fall short in the UFC. It's exciting to have him, established fighter, but I just think Dan Hooker's going to be a tough fight for him. Dan Hooker's got a massive reach advantage over him. You know, if this was a 5-round fight, I wouldn't be so confident, because Dan Hooker seems to have a problem in 5-round fights. He's slowed down against Paul Felder. He's slowed down against Dustin Poirier. But, you know, I've got no reason to doubt him over 3 rounds. He is someone that does get dragged into a lot of wars. You know, you've got the Barboza fight, you've got the Felder fight, you've got the Poirier fight. You know, he's had 3 really tough fights there. Those fights catch up with you. So he's got to be a little bit careful, Dan Hooker, in terms of career longevity, how he carries on the rest of his career. I don't think someone like Michael Chandler is going to drag Hooker into a war. I think either if he beats Hooker, it's either like a one-shot bomb that puts Hooker away, or Hooker puts him away. I don't see it being a prolonged, dragged out 3-round war. I'd be surprised. I don't think Chandler's got the durability for that. I think if it's gonna be a war or a brawl, I think either of them get put down quickly, and I don't think it's Hooker. I mean, Hooker's chin is ridiculous. I mean, even like the Barboza fight, it was the body really that gave out, not the head. And Chandler doesn't have the kind of style that's going to pose those questions regarding Hooker's body. And his chin's held up so far. There's going to be a point where his chin, if he keeps having fights like he did against Poirier, where his chin gives out. But I mean, he had Poirier out on his feet at the end of the 2nd round. Dan Hooker's a dangerous man. Good range, good power punches. He's got dangerous knees as well. Now, something I did pick up on with Chandler was, I can't remember what he does. There's something he does. I don't know if he leans over his lead foot. There was something I picked up on tape that I really didn't like the look of it. It was basically something that puts him in jeopardy for those knees that Hooker throws. I think he lunges and throws. I think he throws a lot of straight rights to the body or jabs to the body. I can't remember. I'm sure it's one of the two. And he leans forward when he does it. But be really careful doing that against Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's got some nasty knees that he'll just throw up. He's got those long legs. So for me, I mean, the line's come in a lot. Dan Hooker's gone down to like -130. I like Dan Hooker here. I favour him on the feet. If you said to me this plays out on the feet for 3 rounds or someone gets knocked out, I would definitely be on Dan Hooker. I think, you know, Chandler has got power. You know, he could knock him out. I'm not going to completely write that off, but I think Chandler's most realistic path to victory is probably from his wrestling and controlling Dan Hooker on the mat. He's got to watch his neck on the entries, but I think that is the path that is probably the safest path for Chandler. I don't see him winning a striking match here, and I don't see him being able to just out wrestle and lay on Dan Hooker for 3 rounds. And you've got to ask yourself as well, Mike Chandler's coming in with a lot of hype here. I think he's getting a good payday from the UFC. He's talked a big game. You know, is he going to come in here and try and wrestle and win a bit of a lay and play victory? It's not going to go down well. So I wonder if he is going to come out here and just give Dan Hooker the fight he wants. You know, I don't know. But a lay and pray victory is, you know, it's not going to impress Dana. And, you know, Khabib threw down the gauntlet last week with, I don't really buy that he's going to come out of retirement if there's an impressive win. But, you just don't know what this does for the psyche of someone. So I'm going with Hooker here. I think Hooker's going to hurt him on the feet and put him away. So Dan Hooker for me. Next fight, the main event, the return of the notorious Conor McGregor. Rematch with Dustin Poirier here. So we all know they fought before. Dustin Poirier got knocked out very quickly. It was over 6 years ago now. One of them shots behind the ear that people get caught with occasionally, and it doesn't mean they've got a questionable chin. Now, I've got to be honest, I always thought Dustin was a little bit chinny. I can remember his fights with, let me just bring up his record, with, I think it was Coruscant, the guy that fights out of Sweden, or did. I think he's retired now. I think he's actually a trainer. I remember him getting rocked in that fight, and there was just some other fights he had where, we're going back a long time. I can't remember what the other fights were. I know the Akira fight. Let me just bring up, I've got his record here now. So I know he got rocked against, was it Coruscant? Let me just look at his record. I can't even see that fight on his record. Yeah, it was Coruscant. It was the fight before the McGregor fight. And I can't remember what other ones there were. I'm sure there were some other ones where he got rocked, and it just made me think, I think he's a bit chinny. But I think moving up to lightweights helped him. I definitely don't think he's chinny now. He's engaged in some absolute wars at lightweight. The Eddie Alvarez fights, Justin Gaethje fights, Dan Hooker fight. He was in trouble in that Dan Hooker fight, big trouble. But he's not chinny. He's more robust at lightweight. He's really filled out at lightweight. God knows how he used to make featherweight. The guy's physique is just, he looks like a big lightweight now. He's got to be really careful here early. Conor is the more technical striker. But I think this fight gets very interesting if Dustin can survive the first couple of rounds. We've seen with Conor that he can slow down in fights. The Diaz fights are basically what we're going off. He dropped Diaz multiple times, but he just couldn't put Diaz away. And Diaz came on strong in both fights. So that is the question mark, is the cardio, and I know it's pretty irrelevant here, but, and he gassed against Floyd Mayweather as well. So Dustin Poirier, imperative for him. If he can get through the first couple of rounds, it becomes very interesting. I think, he's going to have to take some shots in the first couple of rounds. The thing with Conor as well is, we haven't really seen him in a proper fight for over 4 years. The Donald Cerrone fight was over in 40 seconds. The Khabib fight, now I know that went to the fourth round, but, I know the third round was pretty much on the feet, but it wasn't a normal Conor fight because, Conor was a bit hesitant. He was worried about the takedown. The rest of the fight was Khabib basically wrestling Conor. So, we haven't seen Conor kind of extended on the feet. And you've got to imagine this is going to be a striking match. But if you're Dustin Poirier, surely you're going to test the takedown defence, especially as the fight drags on. We saw Dan Hooker try that against Poirier in his last fight. Dan Hooker started to slow down, so he went to the wrestling on Poirier. I wonder if Poirier, once he senses Conor starting to slow down, if he start trying to go to the wrestling, you've got to think it's part of the game plan. Or maybe even early, try and wear Conor out, make him defend takedowns, put him on the fence, get the blood rushing into the arms, try and slow down those powers. I just wonder what the game plan is. You've got to think he's going to be looking to implement that. You can't come out fresh and, it just doesn't seem wise to try and win a striking match with Conor against a fresh Conor. And he's been knocked out by him before. I wonder how that plays mentally. I mean, a long time ago, but I know it was a shot behind the ear, but he knows Conor can put him away. So I just wonder how DP approaches the fight. But yeah, I mean, there is a question mark there with Conor. The Eddie Alvarez fight where he looked phenomenal, but it's over 4 years ago since we've really seen him in an extended striking battle. So you never know. His timing could be off, Conor's. I mean, the Donald Cerrone fight suggests not, but 40 seconds is a very short snapshot. So this is really interesting, this fight for me, if it goes beyond round 2. And I think, to be honest, it would be more impressive for Conor if he actually won like a 5-round decision here, as opposed to knocking Poirier out quickly. Because it's not going to answer many questions. We all know Conor's really dangerous early, but I think to win a prolonged 5-round battle with someone like Poirier, who's a complete warrior, I think it would be more impressive. But can Dustin survive the first couple of rounds is the question. I don't know. But like I say, if the timing isn't there, etc., but Poirier just isn't on Conor's level. Technique-wise, he's the sharper boxer, he's the faster guy. Timing, he's not a massive. Conor's not a huge puncher in the sense that one-shot KO artist, but it's his timing and his power combined that make him so dangerous. So the thing is, if that timing's slightly off, that that changes things. So I can't bet Conor at the current line. I think personally, if you like Conor here, look at the round 1, round 2 props perhaps. And for me, if you live bet fights, and you like DP, look, I'm not saying to anyone not to bet DP because he's plus 250 or so. Do you know what I mean? You're getting a great return on your money. My approach personally, I haven't bet the fight at all. I know people love betting Conor, so if you want to bet Conor, for me, I'd look at the round 1 and 2 prop, and then I'd live bet the fight. See how Conor's looking in the 3rd round. What strategy is DP using? Is he mixing in the wrestling? How much has he taken? Has he taken the shots fairly easy so far? Is Conor starting to slow down? If he is, the shots are likely to be getting less powerful. But, DP is a bit, he's technical. I'm not calling him a brawler, but he's, if he exchanges early on the feet with Conor, it's dangerous. But if the timing's off from Conor, there's just question marks for me. I don't like betting on guys that I don't feel have fought in a long time, and I'm not saying he hasn't. He obviously has, Donald and Khabib, but Donald over very quickly. Khabib, completely different stylistic fight, not really involved in a striking battle. And then Conor's had a lot of stuff going on off the scene as well. So how much has he been training and a lot of that off time? It's just question marks for me. But I would like to see Conor win here, just because it's great for MMA when you've got Conor turning up and putting on a show. But like I said, I think him winning either a decision or stopping Poirier late would be more impressive than him going out and blowing Poirier away. So it's a tough one for me to pick, honestly. I'm going to pick. At these odds, it's tough to pick McGregor. I just worry if it goes past the first couple of rounds. I do worry. I'm going to pick McGregor. But I'm not betting it, as I said. I think round 1 or 2 is the way to look. And I think if it goes past the first couple of rounds, Poirier could suddenly become very, very live. So I expect a lot of people are going to bet Conor. They're going to put him in parlays and so forth. I'm not going to say don't do it, because it wouldn't shock me if he came out and put Poirier away early, and then I look silly telling you not to bet on one of the best fighters we've seen in MMA, one of the best strikers. But it's just question marks for me with regards to his timing, the layoff, him not being involved in a high level or not high level, but a extended striking fight for a long time. In MMA, I know the Floyd fight, but I mean that was years ago now as well. So I'm going to pick McGregor, but Poirier post round 2 for me is live. So good luck with your bets, guys. Be back in a couple of weeks. We've got a week off next weekend after having 3 cards in a row, and we will break down the card
as we always do, from bottom to top. Hope you all make some money. And let's hope we have a couple of great shows, one today, one on Saturday, to kick off the first month of the UFC returning. Good luck, everyone.